Hello, it is the Anfield Wrap after Liverpool have scored a last-minute or late winner. That doesn't really narrow things down. After Liverpool have scored a last-minute or late winner against Burnley away from home, I've got Mo Stewart, Phil Blundell and Jake Nolan to pick the bones out of what was looking like being a disappointing 0-0 until Liverpool, who continue to believe, found a way. That is indeed what we appear to be doing this season. Some of us would quite like it to stop soon, but we'll be chatting about that in a minute or two. Not stop soon in a certain way, stop soon in a different way, but we are in association with Peloton, who are the official fitness and strength conditioning partner of Liverpool Football Club over the course of the season, cardio and strength partner. This is your fault.
I know, yeah.
To celebrate the return of Peloton, we're doing Ride to Rio, which is a challenge on the Peloton app as we collectively try to walk, cycle, run or row the distance from Liverpool to Rio. It's 5,800 miles in the month of September. At the halfway point, Mo, we're well over 3,000 miles, which is brilliant. But this was your thing.
Well, yeah, sometimes I was a little bit giddy post-Newcastle and John was kind of throwing out ideas and I just, the line just came out. Why don't we ride to Rio? And the funny thing is that I did actually say we, even though I knew it wasn't going to be me.
It's not you.
Although
well over 3,000 miles. Are any of them yours?
Although maybe I should come in and kind of do the ceremonial last few steps, like the Queen.
No, don't do that. Don't do that, Mo. I do it all. Don't. I need to get into a couple. I am on top of this. I do know this. So anyone can join in. So all you need to do is have the Peloton app, join the Anfield Wrap team, and sign up to the challenge. Any activity you do on the app, which can include outdoor guided walks or anything on a Peloton bike or tread, will count towards the total. And anyone who contributes just one move to the challenge can be entered in a draw to win tickets for Liverpool versus Manchester United.
I won't win the tickets. I'll take myself out of the draw.
You take yourself out of the draw, but you just one little thing as late as possible.
Absolutely.
And I won't.
See if they end up going to Mr. J. Nolan, who's got 73 different Peloton accounts.
He's
got 73 Pelotons in
Mr. N. Jolan. So forth, as he goes through them all. So if you sign up, you can win those tickets for Liverpool against Manchester United in October, which is closer than you think. So do crack on and add to the miles total. It is the 15th of September today. That is literally halfway. So hopefully we will get it all nailed. That's the challenge that we've gone for, and it is down to Mo. All right. I just start. It's another marvellous moment. It's a different flavour to the previous three, Phil. It is obviously no less vital than the previous three. I would say it was the most fortuitous of the previous three. I don't think it's a fortuitous win from Liverpool's point of view. But I would say that it's a bit of a mad thing the lad does when he elbows it downwards.
Yeah, I'm not quite on board with the luck and fortune and things that have been quite widely talked about since the game finished, in terms of Burnley made a conscious decision to play in a way which was to stand 10 men within 15, 20 yards of each other near their goal. If you do that, it's a cost of doing business that anything can happen. It could be, like you think of Atkinson's goal against Bournemouth, for example, the ball can just break like that for you. A player can do something brilliant. One of these shots that they blocked, I reckon there was 3 shots. I was basically directly behind the goal. I reckon there was 3 shots going in that someone has basically jumped on. Sometimes you can't do that. Balls can break, someone can do something brilliant, but also someone can switch off for half a second, someone can make a rash mistake. This is, football matches last 90 minutes. They last 90 minutes, plus the added time, and anything you do is valid. And honestly, when you do it late, people go, got away with one. I don't think there was anything getting away with one.
Did you think the same for when, let's be clear, Burnley, previous match, before the international break, go to Old Trafford, and the lad pulls Ahmad back? And is your position on that, well, that's because Burnley had fallen into a shell.
Put yourselves in that position. Things like this just can happen. And it's all well and good saying, he shouldn't have done it and he could have not done it and Liverpool would have drawn it. That's absolutely fine. But if you put yourselves in a position where that can happen, you open yourself up to it. Like, it's really, really hard to do what they did for 90 minutes. And it was very impressive that they managed to get as far as they did without switching off for half a second, without leaving a little gap somewhere, with having the force of mind to go, he's going to shoot, I'm going to throw myself in front of that ball. Because I think there were more block shots than we actually had shots on target, because block shots don't count as shots on target. And I thought it was very impressive what they did. They were really impressive at making us, having all of their players within the width of the penalty box and giving us the width, which we didn't use very well. We'll come on to that later, I imagine. They were very good at everything they did, but you have to be absolutely perfect to do that for 90 minutes when there's a gap between the two teams. And I'm just not sure it's a luck thing. I think listen, it could have finished 0-0, but ultimately they were lucky that Liverpool didn't score earlier. And if you want to talk about luck, the luck is that they managed to get as far as they did before something like that happened. Because I just don't think in a Premier League game you can offer as little, commit to getting 0-0, and then go, well, we didn't get it, it was bad luck. It's not bad luck. It's just it's a conscious decision. It's a cost of doing business.
I think they look super organised, and you've got to give them loads of credit for that. But the minute we make the subs and go, we're just going to do something a bit mad here, and like 4 or 5 forwards and stretch the whip with Rio and Frimpong, I don't think Hannibal would have been going out to Mo Salah whipping that crossing. But I think the minute that you've kind of, and we've all played in games, you've overloaded them. Somebody's got to get out to it, and you forced the mistake. So I think ultimately there's a bit of credit in that, even though it's a bit messy, and like Phil said, there's the pressure doing business playing like that. But we've known that they're not going to get out their own half, and ultimately we've just put it right on top of them and then forced a mistake.
The thing about it is, for me, is that yes, they were very much in those 2 walls of 4 and 5 in front of the penalty area. But when they did win the ball back in those areas, they did have a plan of how they were going to score. They just weren't able to do it often enough. And I think we have to give Liverpool credit in terms of the times they did break. If you compare it to the game against Bournemouth, we did a lot better job of cutting off those breaks before they got to the point of taking a shot. But it's funny because Scott Parker pointedly didn't say he blamed Hannibal after the game. He said, it's just one of the things that can happen. However, I do think if you're one of the players who's been on the pitch for 90 minutes, who's been switched on, concentrating, like Phil said, every single moment, every single action for the whole 94 minutes, and someone who's been on the pitch for 7 minutes comes on and does something like that, I'd be a little bit annoyed, to be honest.
Stays away, didn't
he? He did.
He may as well have given it himself. He may as well have got the
He didn't try and play act goal down, a Rivaldo or anything like that. You know what I mean? He just knew.
And it was instinctive. Like you could tell by the way, because his body wasn't very ready in the right position, so he couldn't throw his body in front of it. So his arm kind of went up like that. And again, Parker said after the game, it's like we're gonna have to start teaching people to kind of go with their arms behind their back. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe you are, but I dare say that you'd have had that conversation before today.
See, I don't remember us giving away one of these penalties. Do you remember us giving away a handball penalty over the lot since they've sort of been really weird with handball rules? Because I don't.
Yeah.
No, but this is what I'm saying. Yeah. Our players have clearly been coached to defend in a certain way with their arms, and it is part of coaching that you're teaching players to do certain things. And if you're not doing that, and you're putting players in particular positions, eventually you're going to get burned, and that's sort of what happened.
He does end up with 5. You said before, he got 5 across the middle, Jake, and I think that is, he said afterwards, post-match, he didn't want to have attackers on the bench and be coming back with a point, which I thought was quite insightful with his mindset, but also insightful with his mindset about the nature of this game. He wasn't that far away from saying, I'll be dead honest, the points is almost as good as 0. For us, when we go to a newly promoted side. And I think that is back to, I just think he's very pragmatic. Often people think pragmatic is a defensive thing. I think he's just very pragmatic. His decisions were, right, well, we want 3 points. 3 points is the only good outcome. If we get 1 point, it's almost meaningless. And so he goes, right, well, this is it then. We're going to make the pitch absolutely huge, really wide, attack from these angles with ball carriers. It works for him. I think again, it's not the idea that he's buying a ticket in a raffle. I think it's a calculated decision that he makes, the manager, and it pays off.
Yeah, 1,000,000% so. Transparency is quite refreshing, isn't it? And I think people think from a negative lens sometimes, but I think, we've seen sort of Carragher thinking that he's going to get something out of him by twisting him and trying to get a little bit on it, and he does just lay it out, doesn't he? But again, we have got firepower and different ways to play, and I think if you look at the signings that we've made, particularly in the summer, I think a lot of that's to do with the fact just to give them options. It's not necessarily the case of, there's a couple of players, particularly the 2 centre forwards, who do a lot of the same things and will do a lot of the same things, but I think Frimpong's not going to give you the same as Mo Salah. Rio's not going to give you the same as Gakpo, and he's not a new signing when they played into the squad. And I think that's what he wanted, options, because there will be games like this, and there was games like this last season, big important 3 points, think of Brentford and games like that. It's not always going to be easy. I mean, it'd be nice when it is.
Well, this is.
I have a dream.
But what we say, I think part of this, I agree with Jake, and then part of this was the idea he would like it to be easy. Now, again, you can put context on now 4 of the wins. Burnley only conceded 8 league goals at home last season. They were unbeaten at home. They only conceded 8 league goals. Last season, much at times to the frustration of some of their supporters. I say they only conceded 8 league goals. It's true, but they only won 14 games.
Yeah, there were a lot of nil-nils there.
And they won, and because they made the decision, it came off fun. They got promoted, so you can't slaughter it. But that is their approach, and as Phil says before, it's impressive. But this is the way in which it goes. It was no surprise. It should have been no surprise. So does the manager maybe need to think, well, I wanted more straightforward wins. Did they give us the best chance from the outset in this one? Maybe that might be something he reflects on.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think if this was a game maybe 4 or 5 months further into the season, you could have maybe seen an argument to have Rio starting over Gakpo. Because I think what we were talking about in terms of packing the middle of the pitch, the thing with Gakpo is that he doesn't use the width. He always wants to come inside, whereas Rio is more naturally someone who's going to try and trouble you on the outside. But not only that, he's someone who's going to draw more than one player to him. So there's going to be more space inside to kind of work your magic. And maybe he's thinking it's still a little bit too early to say, okay, I'm going to throw you in the start away from home in a tough atmosphere like Burnley. But a few more reps in the team than maybe he would have done. So that's something you can reflect on. But I think going back to what he was saying about the 7 attackers and not wanting to come away with the point, one of the things I've been very noticeable with Slot is that he has no kind of he shows deference to who he deserves to show deference to. But a game like Burnley, it's like Liverpool should win that game. Liverpool are better than Burnley. So if Liverpool don't win that game, it's bad. Like, you can say you're unlucky, you can say this, it's bad. Like, there are some times where Liverpool playing a good team at home and they don't win and it's okay. But when you're playing a bad team or a team that are definitely worse than Liverpool, we should win that game. There is no excuses. So he's going to do absolutely everything in his power, if it is throwing on 7 attackers, to make sure that that doesn't happen. And it bore out. So far, the end of days of Klopp, we were struggling a little bit with the newly promoted teams. Under Slot, we won 7 out of 7.
Yeah, I remember there was a game we played at Burnley about what? It should be 9 years ago. Is it 9 years ago?
2016 when we get beat 2-0.
I think we had 84% possession that day, and they basically had 2 attacks, scored 2 goals. It was very, very frustrating. They were a better team than, in fairness, but it is very. I found that stat quite interesting, that 7 out of 7, because I haven't realised that. But I feel like there was a period under Klopp where it was like we would just go away from home with these newly prototypes, you wouldn't beat them. And
Luton away was the one.
Exactly.
Luton away was the most painful.
Loads of them. There'd be loads of them, and they'd be very frustrating. I mean, there was a Bournemouth one, I think, as well, wasn't there? The 4-3 at Bournemouth. That's another one.
Well, there's the 1-0 at Bournemouth.
But I think their first season was the 4-3, wasn't it?
The 4-3, yeah. But that was that. I mean,
Maybe
that
it
was
wasn't.
I know that. But I'm more forgiving of that.
But yeah, anyway. But it was sort of it was a habit we had that going away to the lesser sides and not coming away. Just, I think you mentioned the Ngamoa. I thought it was really interesting how they were scared of him.
Yeah,
like
Kyle
Walker looked at him and went. Kyle Walker took 2 steps backward at him, whereas he was happy to engage Gakpo. I don't think Gakpo helped us in terms of he seems to. I don't think it's the type. I don't think he's at his best in a against a team with a low block like that, because he looks like a man who wants to be passed the ball while he stood still, so he can sort of go from a standing start and take a man and make either decision. Whereas Ngamoa was taking the ball in his stride and he was sort of moving it forward and putting them on the back foot, and it was Kyle Walker seemed more scared against him than he was of Gakpo.
Anyone who's played any type of footy at any level, can you imagine being sort of like 90% into that game of football, and then somebody with that freshness comes on,
who's 17 years old.
Yeah, you're just like, fuck this. Basically,
probably had 2 driving lessons.
Yeah, exactly, is what it looked like. And again, he was stretching the play, wasn't he? And again, Frimpong, the other side, done something very similar. And here's the options we're talking about, isn't it?
Mm. I think as well, when you look at the options that you've got a right back, like, I think it's fascinating that Szoboszlai, obviously he's a midfield, he's a number 10 playing at right back, so you expect it to be a bigger passing range and all that kind of stuff. But then Conor Bradley goes on, and the first thing he does is go and stand on the D, like right next to Florian Wirtz. You're like, okay, so this is the guy playing at right back who's doing number 10 things, and the guy who's the number 10 at right back isn't doing those things. And then you talk about Frimpong and how he stretches the width, and I think it's fascinating the fact that the 3 of them look at the position so differently, and you wonder how much of that is their natural game and how much of that is Slot saying, well, no, this is what I want you to do. Because I think one of the things we saw at half-time was there was clearly a message to say, speed it up. Let's get this game going.
It was another
quicker.
good half-time, wasn't it,
Mo?
It
was. And I think on top of the fact that obviously they made the Kirkes sub already, he knew that he was going to have to take McAllister off from 60, so he thought, why not wait? Why wait? do it now. And Bradley really took his instructions well. But not only that, it was almost like everyone else followed in behind him. So, oh, okay, we're doing it now, because they could see that it made a difference. So Burnley were, in the first half, able to basically stand in their shape.
Yep.
Whereas in the second half, they were actually having to move towards players and actually start defending and throwing those blocks in and those kind of things. And that was what was actually going to wear them down.
I don't know if you noticed this, but did you know that Ekdal, who I think Ekdal was playing centre back, but he had cramp on about 60.
Yeah.
Like, and I thought it was really interesting. Now, like, I looked at the clock on about 68 minutes, I think it was, and the game felt like there was 5 minutes left. Liverpool were like playing with an intensity and purpose that you sort of see 85 onwards, and I was just like, how can they last so long? And in fairness, they lasted a hell of a lot longer than I thought they did. I was fairly confident.
Well, I think the subs I think Phil are all positive. They're all good moves. With the possible, and subs don't always work.
Yeah.
I thought the Chiesa one actually knocked our momentum a little bit, and I understand why the manager made it. I thought that was the one that just sort of.
There was one ball he played round the corner, and two people were switched off. And if
one
one of them is switched on, the through-on goal.
It's not criticism of him.
No.
I thought there was a moment of not quite knowing where he was going to be. There's the good cross comes in. It's the header with the first touch.
Again, if he scores that, it's like, oh, what a substitution!
Yeah, exactly.
That's still out now.
That's the up and down.
I think I'd have walked home, you know.
There's the up and down of these subs. Just quickly on headers, the Canate one, Jake, you know, it's a great chance. And it's one of those chances, I think afterwards the body language of him and Van Dijk was all a bit like, oh, well, headers in the penalty area, right? This is the way it is. He is 2 yards out. All it has to do is hit his head and it goes in. Instead, because he heads it, because he goes to score, if you see what I mean, he tries to force it, it doesn't. Again, you know, back to the fortuitous point or the what, well, if that just hits his head and he heads it badly and Liverpool are 1-0 up, then all the talk of Burnley having had hard lines, it obviously becomes a completely different story after 12 minutes.
Yeah, and the way we were setting up for corners, I thought was really interesting. It wouldn't surprise me if it was a bit of a talking point going into the game. It looked like they were kind of right on the goalie, seeing it as an opportunity. I thought it was really interesting that we kept swapping the corner takers as well. It seemed pretty sort of on purpose, you know.
Just on that, does anyone think it's a bit mad that Gakpo's about 6'3" and taking corners?
Yeah,
it just feels sporty. It feels wrong. He took loads second half.
Well, he did it for PSV though.
Yeah,
I think so.
It feels weird to me.
No, it is
the polar opposite of what it should be. You know what I mean?
Well, I agree with that, but I also wonder whether, because sometimes I've been quite critical about who's took our corners, and think whether it's a positional thing. You know, he doesn't want people to be out of position.
Maybe, it's impossible. Yeah,
because you know, Szoboszlai would be on the other side of the pitch, for example, and
it's
things
true.
like that. But going back to Canate, I mean, yeah, it's a great chance, and he'd be kicking himself. I've been there myself a few times, but yeah, it's a different game, because then they have got to come out and then we can hit them on the break and do all the things that we want to do. But I think Liverpool, I think there's a big emphasis on our corners at the moment. I think we need to get it right. We need to find that corner taker, and we need to do, because I think that you see a lot of teams put a lot of emphasis on set plays, and I don't think we're as strong in that department as what we could be.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because you look at a game like this, and we take the mickey out of Arsenal and to extent Chelsea this season for they become a set piece FC. But set pieces are really good at breaking games open. When a team is showing the effort and the energy and the discipline to be able to stifle you. Like Scott Parker again post-match has talked about the fact that Liverpool want space. So the one thing we're not going to give them is space. So if you've got no space to work in, then you get these opportunities to kind of move around people in the middle of a penalty area. So you get to an opportunity to have 5, 6, 7 players all really close to the goal, which you wouldn't get at any other point. So you've got to work on them. You've got to make sure they go win. And I guarantee you today, they'll be looking over the film and we're already sitting there laughing, and Slot will be like, you've got to do better. Like if you look at the angle that the ball comes off his head at, it's literally like it's come out there. It's just like, just watch it. Just watch it. And when you're in position there, and I think this is something that Virgil's so good at, that again, that we kind of take for granted, is when he knows he's going to win a header, he concentrates on the connection. He doesn't concentrate on power. He's not. You never see a Virgil header. Yeah, you never see a Virgil header bullet into the net. It just goes where it needs to go. And that's what
he does. Everton effortlessly, though, isn't he? Pure space jam gear.
I'm all for being good from set pieces. What I'm not for is this take 2.5 minutes over every single one of them. Yeah. Not least because you eat your own time if you're not careful. Like I watched Arsenal against Nottingham Forest first hour or so. And
if you're still watching that after the second goal, you're a better person.
I feel it makes me sick. Honestly, it makes me sick. how long it takes to do everything. It's just the whole, we're turning this into a theatrical thing, we're building the tension.
40 seconds for throw-ins.
Yeah, 40 seconds.
It's not what anyone's in this for. It's not what anyone's in this for.
Genuinely, there was about an 80-second build-up to a corner. And I just couldn't believe it. And
it's amazing how Blue knows he's turned that club in.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing. It's just this. Meanwhile, I'm gonna Jack Grealish in the head off. I'm having a fucking ball.
Who'd have thought Moisey would be the fun one?
I know. Well, I mean, Moisey was the fun one for a while at West Ham, wasn't he? When it was Jesse Lingard and David Moyes together. You know, it is. No, I'm just sort of watching it. And it's just driving me a bit mad. I want to move on from that moment and crack on to the spirit. Not the spirit of the Blues. Although the spirit of the Blues in a minute, again, it's just mostly upbeat, although they did end up with a bit of a frustrated 0-0. They were better than Aston Villa, Everton at the weekend.
It's not hard at the minute, though, I don't think.
You may never score, Phil. Phil, what are we going to do if Aston Villa
the way that like Liverpool can't just score last-minute winners?
Yeah.
What do you reckon will happen first? A game where Liverpool don't score a last-minute winner or a game where Villa score? I think it'd be really funny if we kept doing last-minute winners. It's just like until we play them.
Yeah, and then
we play them in November, and there's a choice between Aston Villa have not scored yet, and Liverpool have won every game in the last minute, which isn't going to happen today.
Yeah, and it is. They are distinctly sad and broken. Aston Villa, Liverpool aren't. No. This is the key thing that you take from the game. Even when it comes out to the left-hand side on about 93, and it isn't just because it's Rio. I think that there's an entire energy of this is still here for us. And I think that is one of the things that is so impressive about them.
I do think so, and I mean, people who aren't Liverpool fans or aren't Liverpool coverers will roll their eyes when we talk about the fact that late goals are in our DNA. But this is the same thing we heard from Manchester United in the 90s, and it's true because when you've done it that many times, you always believe it's possible. You always think that there's another chance coming, there's another opportunity. It doesn't matter how many times you've not got close. You can get close again next time. And looking at the way Liverpool played, like, again, 27 shots in that game. The 27th is the one that goes in. And you think, they aren't giving up there. They're not just kind of throwing their hands up thinking we're never going to score here. They're keeping going. It's
different to Arsenal. It's different to Bournemouth because of the way the games have gone. It's different to Newcastle. For me, what makes this difference is it feels a little bit, by the time you get to 70, where you could be a little bit like, well, we've seen this before. We know what happens here. This is a slog. They don't buy that. They don't settle for that reality. They go, we don't care how much of a slog you're going to make it. We're going to keep plugging away.
They have belief because the things that they're doing, that they can see the incremental differences. So from looking back on it, you look at the way that they were trying to kind of pick their way through, tiptoe their way through the width of the penalty box and all those players. And you're thinking, why are they just keep doing that? Why don't they not try and stretch it? But in their mind, they're like, we are getting closer. Because in some way, they were getting closer. Yeah. There was more, they were getting closer to, okay, now we're inside the box. Yeah. And then because rather than the shot being blocked from outside, they're inside. So I was looking at kind of like the XG of each shot and stuff, and not very many of them were very high, but 14 of those 27 shots were inside the box. So they were getting into the box.
We had 55 touches in the box. We had 65 in the previous 3 games.
Yeah. So
that shows you the intent that we showed and how aggressive Liverpool were.
Just on that sort of belief thing that Mo mentions, Phil, that to me was, I thought that was the big shift for first half into second half. Yeah. All of a sudden, we were genuinely around the box in a useful way in the second half. And from 47 minutes, we're around the box and you're going, okay, we've got to the box now. And that is almost what you've got to do with this. If it doesn't come for you through a moment of magic and a moment of brilliance, you've got to erode them and say, right, sorry now, lads, you've been trying to defend effectively 25 yards out. Now you're at 18. By the time we finish, we're going to get you to 12. And that's back to your point before. And then finally, if you're just 12 yards away from your own goal, you're repeatedly throwing a dice. And it might be that, from their point of view, 1 to 5 sorts them out. But at some point, someone's going to throw 6.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all sports are different, but all sports in some ways are fundamentally the same. Like, I'm sure you watched NFL last night, didn't you? Yes. When's it easier to score? It's easier to score when you start your possession closer to the other team's thing. Yeah. You force them back, they clear it, and it doesn't get as far. And eventually, you wear them down and move them further back. And that's what we did over the course of that second half, really. They didn't feel quite as deep in the first half as they did second, but I think you'd have been halfway line, so you had a pretty much better view of this than me.
Definitely.
But it felt like they were on the edge of the box in the first half, and they were around the penalty spot sort of second half, and we made them do that because they felt more and more desperate, and everything felt more and more last ditch as it went on. And like I say, this is someone I thought they were really good. I genuinely did thought they went on there and said, we've got a point, we're going to come off this pitch with a point. and they defended with their absolute lives. And fair play to them for that. But it's just hard, isn't it?
It is hard. I think the other thing that came into play was in the first half, they're doing it knowing that this is the plan, but maybe in the back of their mind thinking, well, eventually they're going to score. Whereas once you get into the second half, once you get to 20 minutes to go, it's like, shit, we can actually see the horizon of this point. We're close to it. We're within touching distance. So then the psychology shifts. Then you've got something to lose. Then you become a little bit more nervous about things. And then you think, okay, well, we're going to drop deeper. And that, I think, helped Liverpool as well. And coupled with the fact that Liverpool know that Liverpool is great at scoring late. Burnley know Liverpool are great at scoring late. All of these factors all feed into it. And when you only need one little mistake out of all of those micro decisions to go your way, these things all matter.
There's a lot of conversation about Liverpool's structure, how they're attacking, a couple of players coming in for questions, not criticism. I think it's perfectly legitimate to question anything, to be honest with you, Jake, where the game's concerned. I want to take a slightly more sort of left field view. I think there's a little bit of a conflict at the minute with the positioning and the outlook with McAllister and Wirtz. I think there's just a teeny little bit of... I mean, first and foremost, they need to get McAllister right. Whether or not he was fit for the game against Arsenal didn't seem it. Obviously, in this one, it's hard to tell because he basically gets an ankle-breaking challenge on about 15-20, so it's difficult to tell. So there's a lot of chat at the minute that Salah's less involved, and there could be something in that to me. But for me, there's a little bit where I think McAllister and Wirtz want to be in the same channel. They want to be in that same sort of pocket, and it's no surprise. Second half, Wirtz is much more involved, and you think about where he was picking the ball up, it was in the places you expect to see Alexi McAllister in games like this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're going to have to figure it out, aren't they? It's new, and the good news is we've got loads of games to do that, and loads of good players. But I think there's still an element of Liverpool trying to figure out what works for them. But I am a big believer as well in playing the occasion, you know what I mean? And when I saw it, McAllister was starting, he's one of my favourite players. You know, you'd heard me wax about him the last few years coming on here, but I did wonder if is that just one you could have just left him out? You know what I mean? Because I am honestly a big believer in playing the occasion. I thought it was interesting with his changes as well. I think as much as they were about tactics, and we can talk about that, and we have talked about that with what he did with the front four, I thought it was dead interesting the way he got Bradley and Robertson on the pitch, because I wonder whether that's just a case of it's pissing down here. This is a horrible game at Burnley. These are two lads who know what they're going to do in this type of game.
Freezing as well, by the way.
Yeah, roll the sleeves up and pushes on. And they both did that, didn't they? You know what I mean? And I think there was an element of that in certainly 2 or 3 of his changes. And playing on occasions, we've gone back to what we were saying before. We have got the options now of playing in different ways and doing different things. And we can change it up. For example, we talked about the Champions League earlier before we started. I imagine we'll see games where McAllister's playing 1-2s with Wirtz. I'm like, oh my God, we've got Xavi in yesterday. But there'll also be games where you are playing Burnley away, where you might just want to shore up a little bit, do things slightly different, and work with that. And I would say, as much as you could say it's a problem and a problem we've got to solve, I would say it's going to be fun figuring that out and how we do it.
Yeah,
did you not watch that second half thing? And it'd be quite interesting. McAllister was on the pitch though, because I think there was more. It feels like he could have done more of what he wanted to do in the second half than the first half, just in the way that we've got Burnley deeper and the way that they committed to something and the way he moves the ball. Like I mean, I wouldn't have started him. Interestingly, like I was surprised that we didn't start an actual right back at right back, and I think that probably would have made the game a lot easier. I think he has a really good game, but just wasn't quite what we needed from that position.
He's the best right back in the world, though. So that's a problem, isn't it?
That was great. It's just I just didn't think stylistically he was exactly what we needed. And then he went into midfield and he looked great because there was space for him to drive into because they were so far away, and it just got easier for him. But I would have liked to see McAllister around the box trying to pick things open. It would have been interesting to see. Yeah, exactly.
But I just think in that first half period, Phil, again, and I thought...
I agree completely on that. It just didn't feel like it worked. It's a couple of games where they sort of feel a bit on top of each other, where they're sort of making the same runs and they sort of want the ball in the same area. It just doesn't quite work. But this is just part of what a new football team is, though, I suppose, isn't it? Ultimately, they're too good. The manager's too good. They're too good as footballers for it to just not eventually fit. And also, they don't have to play together every week. This is the thing. We're going to play 70 games this season, hopefully. Yeah. They don't have to play 70 together. They could play 30 individually and 10 together.
It goes back to playing the occasion as well, doesn't it? You know, they might pick the team on Friday night or whatever when the sun's shining in Liverpool and whatnot, and then they get to Burnley, the winds are blowing over here, it's pissing down, and go, do you know what, we've got 5 subs, we can change this.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element to that.
I think as well, as Gravenberch was fantastic, and we're probably going to come and talk about him, but I still think there's an element that Slot feels like McAllister's his best ball winner of the midfielders at the moment. He's the one who's most likely to win all his tackles, win all of his duels, even though the fact that he's like half the size of all of them. And maybe
And has a target on his chest.
yes,
seemingly.
he does. He does seem to attract that kind of mad tackle more than anyone else. But maybe Slot was feeling like, well, I need that, particularly in the early stages. I can't let Burnley win the physical battle and get on top of us. And it turned into a game like we saw at Goodison, where Liverpool are committing all the fouls, having all the ball and all that kind of stuff. So you can see in a world where he's thinking, okay, maybe I do need McAllister, but I agree with you guys. I would have definitely had him on the bench. Particularly when we've got Atletico Madrid in midweek, I'd have been like, that's where I wanted to start.
I think it was possibly a fitness thing more than in terms of he wanted the minutes and the legs. I think if he hadn't used one of his sub windows in the first half, he probably would have given him another 15 minutes, but he just didn't really feel that he could, because he only obviously had 2 opportunities to make substitutes in the second half, didn't he? So once he's got that, he's like, I'm probably going to do this 10, 15.
Did he? Afterwards, he's
Yeah.
absolutely spot on. I'm glad. I think that's still, I think our managers have got a lot better now, but I think in the early days, the 5 subs, but you can only break the game. I think a number of managers would be quite forgot you could only break the game part. So I thought he would definitely do something at half time anyway. I thought someone's coming off at half time because it helps the decision making in the second half. Takes a bit of pressure off. I want to talk about Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, pairing the two of them together, because what I think is interesting when you look at the CVs of both players is that whilst they've obviously been very accomplished, they've never been champions. And currently the pair of them, I think every single time they take the pitch, they look like we think we're part of the best team in the country, we're the best players in the country, watch us go.
And the best example of that yesterday was that touch from Gravenberch in the first half, where I still don't really know how he did it. Maybe potentially even why he did it. But it was just outright the confidence to basically just go, right, well, I'm just going to lift the ball sort of over/round him, then get it on the other side, and I'll make it look really easy. Like, it was technically just a pretty difficult thing to do, and he's done it like he's half asleep, basically. It was just ridiculous. I thought he got more. It was almost a bit like Burnley hadn't watched videos of him for sort of the first 20-25 minutes, because he was back to doing the hip twists where he's creating space for him, which he did loads the first half of last season, and then teams sort of got wise to it and realised sort of how to stop it. But Burnley obviously haven't played against him before and were seeming like completely oblivious to the way he could do that. And it was just, there was one sort of in the right back area where he opens the pitch up, takes it past 2 men, and Liverpool are away on a counter attack, which they don't make the most of, but he still gets Liverpool on the front foot brilliantly, which it's very strange having a player who is effectively holding midfielder who is so good at opening the pitch up. And that is such an asset to have. It's not, and he's not even playing 50, it's not like a Thiago style, I'm going to play a ball through 3 men where there's about an inch either way, where if I get it wrong, the ball's intercepted. He's just going, I'll see you later. I've sorted that. You're that way now. I'm that way. The goal's over there. I was there that minute ago, and we're all sorted. He's so good to watch. He's so much fun. He's just excellent. And I think the good thing is you can put various different partners with him based on who we're playing. Like, I think Szoboszlai was great for that yesterday. I think McAllister probably would have been as well second half, as I said before, but I thought Szoboszlai was excellent at driving with the ball and having legs to get back in as well, because I think when we sort of committed to the fact that we were possibly going to be a little bit open on the counter-attack, and Szoboszlai is able to get back in a way that McAllister isn't. So that really helps, and Gravenberch can get back in, and he can also, like, he sort of what goes to centre-back a little bit, doesn't he? It wasn't quite like that, but he left Liverpool with the opportunity to use him as a centre-back at the end, and he's got the absolute lot. I mean, I can't believe Bayern Munich had him, and I've gone, nah, not for us, we'll have Joe Palhinha instead. Genuinely staggering.
It's mental. He might be the best at what he does in the world, and I think that's the thing with both of them, highlighting both of them is being champions, and I think that comes to the title, but I'd say the pair of them aren't prospects anymore.
No.
They are like seasoned pro. They probably both played upwards of 300 professional games, international, Champions League, been there, seen there, done it, and I think you can see that. I think the shoulders are a bit higher and a bit more confident, and interesting with that too as well, because good luck playing against them too. They'll just run all over you. And I don't know any midfield too who could live with that. We might come against teams who might be able to pass round us in the Champions League and things like that. Think of the PSGs and the Real Madrid and stuff like that. But could you picture a two that could outrun them too? I couldn't. So good luck with it. And then you got McAllister to bring into that. I feel really sorry for Curtis Jones, because He's looking really good, I think, as well. But the lads he's got in front of him are good players, and I think Liverpool quietly got to the place where I wouldn't swap our midfield options with anybody else's.
No, not at all. The thing I noticed about Gravenberch this season as well is that he's obviously heard me talking about how I think we want him to score more goals, because he's getting into goal scoring positions, he's getting into shooting positions, and he's looking threatening when he does it as well. And if you can add that to all of the other things that we've already been talking about, then he really does become the complete midfielder. And he becomes, when you consider the wealth of talent we've got ahead of him on the pitch, when you're an opposing manager and you're talking about stopping Liverpool, he becomes one of the first people you talk about, because you have to have a Gravenberch plan. Otherwise, he's just going to run all over you.
I don't think Gakpo is very good. I think and I can't quite work out whether or not this is a psychological thing, the performances on the roads, the away goal scoring, which has dried up. I just thought he was. I don't even think. I thought that Salah felt a little bit disconnected. I think the churn of right back partners, etc., and disconnected is different to just not that good. And I thought with Gakpo, I thought he was well supported, so therefore I'd have liked a bit more.
It's funny because I've come to a place with Cody where essentially it feels like he plays the same game every week. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It feels like it depends upon who you're playing against and how they're playing against him. It makes a difference. So he's the first man in the game to have a shot, and it goes like 10 yards over the top. But it's a Gakpo shot where he kind of drops his shoulder and tries to put it in the top corner. All of the other times, he's trying to lift it to the far post and trying to find some, or playing a ball from that edge of the area, curling across, hoping someone comes and runs in on it. And Burnley know that's what's coming, and they're able to set up, they're able to position their defenders to head it away, and they head it away every time. And so you think, well, what's he doing? He's not got anything else. He's not necessarily doing the quick 1-2s with his fullback. That, to be honest, he seemed to do better with Simicast than any of our other left backs for some unknown reason. Them two seem to have it really going on. Hasn't got it yet with Kirkes. Doesn't always have it with Robertson either. So when you take that part out of his game, it's just the thing. And like I say, sometimes it looks great and sometimes it works for him and sometimes it doesn't. And that's why I think having someone like Diaz, who was a very different kind of player out there, someone like Rio, who's a very different kind of player there, is very important, because it's like, okay, not your day today, Cody, no matter, we put someone else in there. The interesting thing with Salah, because I've seen all of the talk about him being disconnected, and I agree, but I've become very obsessed with who passes to who and how much. So after every game, I'll go onto the match centre and look at the passing networks. Outside of the Konate, Van Dijk, Gravenberch axis, the two strongest passing is Salah to Wirtz and Salah to Szoboszlai. So, and I think most of those do happen in the second half.
Yeah.
But they're trying. Like you can sense the fact that they're thinking, okay, we need to try and connect more. And the little triangles that Salah was so good at doing with Szoboszlai and Trent, they're like, okay, we need to be able to do this. And it's fascinating, isn't it? Because obviously Szoboszlai was in that triangle, but now when he's in a different position, it's just a little bit more difficult to get him to be able to allow Salah to get into places to make an impact. So, like we were saying before, this is all gonna work its way out. The more reps that they do, the better it's gonna be. With Gakpo, yeah, I feel like this is good. He could play exactly the same game against Everton and score 2 goals.
Yeah, I think his approach, well, spot on, his approach doesn't really change depending on how the game was, which I think in a game like that was a problem. There was a couple of times second half where Wirtz had the ball sort of left-hand channel. He's got 2 defenders in front of him and Gakpo on the outside of him, and it was so easy for Gakpo to just nip in behind and run through. He kept pulling more progressively wide. I'm just a bit like, I don't really, why are you not making that aggressive run into the box? And worst case, you might take a defender with you, and Wirtz can go on the outside and just open the pitch up a bit. I felt like he made it a little bit more difficult for the people around him in terms of how he plays. I think I said before, he feels like he wants the ball from a standing start so he can run at people, and most of the time it's to cut in and do something. There are a few balls up to the back post which I didn't really understand. Like, it's not.
It felt like I've just got to do something.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like. There was a bit of piece of what Gakpo was doing, but it felt like he just felt like, I've just got to do this.
There is a real reticence to go on the outside of the fullback as well and hit the byline.
Well,
He does it a few times, like, but not as much as he should. Not as much as he feels like he should be doing it. And I'm a bit like, you're playing left wing. like Diaz was not an out and out winger in some ways, but he would happily go, I'm going to get to the byline. Worst case, I get a corner. Like, and I know we're not playing for corners and stuff like that.
No, we're not
But
from North London.
No. But if you might get one. You might put a cross in, something like that. He's got just attack the outside, because it also makes the defender think as well. One of the things I think is that it's just a little bit. It must be quite easy to play against sometimes as a right back.
I think there was a
because
lot
he's
of
a
that
bit
going on
predictable.
yesterday. I think part of it is because he was playing against Kyle Walker. He might be the best ever right back to play in the Premier League. I think he was a bit put off his game in many different ways. Maybe he didn't fancy going one-on-one with him. Maybe he was getting tight with him on certain occasions he doesn't like. I do think he's a bit predictable, but I think he's got to come to the party.
There's one where away from home. There's one where Walker just gets back in. He's got away Salah, and Walker nibbles, and he's, if he nibbled a little harder, not Salah, Gakpo, and if Gakpo went down at that point, there could have been something in it. He's on his way down. He doesn't quite do enough Walker, and Walker ends up having another go, and he manages to get his foot to it the second time. But that was the time he had him extended, and you could see there, and this is the funny thing with Walker at the age of this point he is in his career, is I think Walker makes it all look really easy right up until the point at which he goes, oh fuck, and that's whereas in the past he never even seemed to have those moments, and ironically I think he actually made some stuff look a little bit harder. Now you get to see his all experience all the way through, but as soon as you have him have a moment where he goes, oh, I'm in trouble, and I think you actually see that a bit when Rio comes on. He almost looks at Rio a bit like, I don't want any part of this. This is
you
just...
see it regularly from City against Spurs. I feel like it was a very much a thing that happened for Manchester City when he played Tottenham. Kyle Walker being full control, and then all of a sudden he go, hang on, what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think it's part of getting old. He's relied on his physical attributes, hasn't he? And the diminishing. The older you get, it happens to us all.
But he was able to look at Gakpo, I think, first half and think, I can contain you.
I think he old-manned him a bit. I think he was like, I'm going to show him inside. If it goes on the outside of me, I think I've got him in a foot race. I think I can go tight when I need to go tight. And I think I can, if he's not got 20 yards, I mean, he's running behind, he's not going to hurt me. And I think that there's a lot of that. Like I said, when the changes are made later in the game, it's a completely different game. But the thing with Gakpo for me is, I think if you'd asked majority of Liverpool fans last season, you were in a cup final, you would just start Diaz or Gakpo. I think although Gakpo was a really good player, I think majority of players would say Diaz. I would say one of Diaz's greatest strengths is he'd always give you the game, and he'd open the game up for Salah one way or another. And I think that's where Gakpo's got to come to the party. He's got to give the defence more to think about. That opens up the play for other people, and just bring more goals, bring more assists, or just be more involved in the game.
There was one in the first half where Atkinson basically did exactly what we're talking about, and slides it across the face of goal, and unfortunately he was trying to cross it to himself. But there's a world where Alexander Isak plays and he just taps it at the back post. And that kind of thing, he wasn't opening up the game in a way that Atkinson did in that moment, and you just want a bit more of that from him. But then there's some games where, like we play Chelsea away in 3 weeks, it'll probably be great at Chelsea.
I think so.
Like, I think the game will stylistically really suit him.
I do think it's a big moment for him. No, he's just signed a new contract. The lad who is effectively, the other person in his place. We know Slot likes to play for a position. Seemingly at the moment is Rio, who's a 17-year-old lad. So for me, that's as much as a rubber stamp of this is your position. You need to lock this down. And for me, for that area of the pitch in Liverpool, you need to make sure that you're one of our best players then.
All right then, Liverpool do the business. We will move on and we will talk about the fact that we've got 3 pairs of tickets to give away for the Everton game this weekend, courtesy of LFC's official workwear partner, Strauss. So, if you wanted to enter for 3 pairs of tickets for the Everton game this weekend, you can fill your details in at the wrap, with a W, .typeform.com/the Anfield Wrap. So therap.typeform.com/the Anfield Wrap. We'll put a link in the show blurb, so you should be able to find that easily enough as well, and I'm sure it'll be on social media somewhere. But therap.typeform.com/the Anfield Wrap. 3 pairs of tickets, courtesy of Strauss, Liverpool's workwear partner. Want to move on and talk about Europe. Phil, I think I'll start with, before getting into Atleti themselves, I'd say the order of the fixtures hasn't really helped Liverpool in Europe this season. This is one of the peaks and troughs of literally doing this, the way in which it goes. I think that it was a little kinder last season, the order. The draw itself, in the end, Liverpool made it look like it was straightforward. I don't know if it was. But the order of games, what's home, what's away, and so on, I think is a little bit difficult, and it makes it tough to pick priorities. I think everyone will look at Qarabağ at home at the end and think that's good because if you need to win, you think it's the game that you're likeliest to win. The flip side of that, though, is if you want to be able to rest at some point, well, you haven't had Qarabağ at home to get the points on the board. And I think a lot of this conversation is potential points versus points on the board. But I've met Arne Slot, and he doesn't care about potential points. He cares about points on the board.
No, yeah, you think to last season Liverpool played there. I think they play pot 2 away and then pot 4 at home in the first 2 games.
Yeah,
which is, pretty helpful. We've got pot 2. I think we've got pot 2 at home.
pot 4 away.
Pot 4 away. Pot 4 away is pretty much the strongest team we could possibly have got. I think they've got an £80 million centre forward who's been linked with all the best clubs in Europe. It's a bit of a cruel one. Then there's away at the pot 3 team.
Yeah,
which are Frankfurt, who came third in Germany, who were also a good team. Then it's Real Madrid at home. It's a tough start, and you would like the Qarabağ one to be earlier, just to make things a little bit easier. It's not ideal in terms of the way these fixtures have fallen. I think even the fact that we've got 2 aways in the first 3 is not great either. But the flip side of this is if you do come away with that with 9 points from the 3 games, which isn't it's not a particularly outrageous thing. I think looking at the games, I think Liverpool would have an argument to win all 3. If you can win those 3, you are in an absolutely great position. And I think one of the things that PSV game did last season in January when we just left everyone at home. We played Bournemouth on the Saturday. It was a hard game at Bournemouth. We come away with 3 points, and that is almost where it was a bit like, okay, that's a big part of the league now. So this is all. The relationship between the two is pretty important in terms of making it easy. Winning the league becomes easier if you don't get those 2 extra games in February.
Yeah.
Winning the Champions League becomes easier if you get the league wrapped up early.
Yeah.
Get the league wrapped up early is easier if you can have a rest in January. It's
funny that.
Win as much game. Just win as many games as you can, Jake. It's easy, isn't it?
Well, no, I mean, Jake, football is at times it is obvious. Win as many games as you can and just go and do it. The manager sort of made some noises. We'll see the way the Swiss system shakes out, all of that. I actually don't think Liverpool will be all that different. I think what he might have an eye on is the games around, if Liverpool can get positive results, he might have an eye on Inter Milan away, say in December, and if Liverpool have got the points on the board. And
we go to Bournemouth again after that Marseille game, don't we?
Yeah.
So you could go, we'll bank the Qarabağ, but then if you're the manager, imagine going there, I'm just going to not try in this game. I'm going, you get €3 million for winning this one, mate.
Yes. That, and also it takes the pressure off the next one. Yeah. We want to just be in the next phase. Thank you very much, because you get loads of euros for being in the next phase. I think I think that you talked a little bit like, what did you go for it and all of that. I think they're all very rational people. They'll assess it in the cold light of day, and in the end, just sort of go, no, what you want to do is you want to give yourself the agency to make choices later on. If it's Inter Milan where you don't go as strong as you might do, or if it's Marseille, you don't go as strong as you like to, or it's Qarabağ because you got through. I just think the mentality will be, but you've got to get the points. The points is what frees you up, and I think Liverpool will be all in for the first 4 European games, all in about getting results.
I completely agree, and I made up the first games at home, and it's a big game because I feel like that'll get the best out of us as well.
Agree.
But I think the big difference between this season and last season, apart from the way it's fell, is he's built this squad. And he mentions when we went out to Champions League last season, just about, could he have rotated, could he twisted more than he stuck, and I think if we're honest about it, maybe it's because he didn't trust the squad as much as he would like in certain positions. But he's built this one now, and famously so. So I would be very, very surprised if we didn't see a little more sort of twisting and sticking on this side, because, more than anything, he's sending out the messages to these players that they're going to be needed, they're going to be required, they're going to be a part of it. As we said earlier, 2 in every position, so to speak. So I think if you said to him, what's my strongest team now, I don't necessarily think his strongest team against Burnley away is the same as strongest team against Atletico at home. I think that's how he's built this squad. So I think ultimately it'll depend a lot on context in terms of the results we get and how we go about that. But effectively, I think he's built a squad to win the Premier League, to play away games in the Champions League and play home games in the Champions League, and that's what we're going to see.
I agree. I think that this is the beauty of options, is that you have, as I was saying before about right back, you got 3 different players who do it very differently. Which one of those is going to be the most effective against this team we're playing next, and work out from there. Like, there were some times where you'd assume maybe that there's one player who'll play for away games, or one player will be more suited to European football. To be honest, I think Florian Wirtz, for example, may actually be a little bit more suited to European football than it's been to the Premier League. But I think it's going to be more likely to be a case of what do the opponents do. In terms of the order, I think we've kind of been given and taken away. So I think playing Atletico Madrid right now is better than playing Atletico Madrid in October, November because they're not playing very well.
Or away.
Or away.
That's horrible.
Flip side of it is Frankfurt are flying. And so playing them quite early on is not great either. So you kind of get both. But again, I just think the Real Madrid game is pivotal. I think regardless of how well they've done in the first three, if Liverpool win that Real Madrid game, it sets them up for the second half of this campaign. If they don't win that Real Madrid game, then suddenly it becomes a little bit more difficult and you're trying to think, okay, well, where are the points coming from? But the interesting thing for me is going to be how different the whole of Europe takes it, because last year was a bit of a voyage of discovery and we found there was Real Madrid, Man City, PSG, all floundering around the 22, 23, 24. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen this time. That this time, the big teams are all in the top 15.
I think, I suppose they were, like Man City and Real Madrid were, one of them was quite low. Like,
City needed a win.
Yeah, they did, yeah. Like, the sort of the way the fixtures are doesn't really lend itself to everyone being good, though, does it? In terms of, because you've got to play, like, 2 pot 1 and 2 pot 2 teams, so that everyone playing each other sort of messes people up.
I think that's true.
Like it's interesting that Leipzig basically go out as a pot 1 team. They go out in the first round with like 0 wins or something, just in terms of how hard and messy everything is. Like it's.
No, but I do agree with you though. I think that I think what you will see is Real Madrid, Man City will have. I think they'd in previous years when they were number 1 seed in a Champions League 14 group. I think that they'd mastered the way of you get through this with a minimum of fuss and you don't overexert yourself and this is how you do it. I think that they suddenly get 5 games in last season and they're a bit like, oh, we've tried to ride this a little bit. We've tried to be quite standoffish and then suddenly it got real.
City are 3-0 up at home to Feyenoord and draw 3-all though, so I don't think it's quite as simple as it. I think those teams ended up in that position basically because their performances were just quite poor, and it wasn't sort of any.
And there's an element
of decision-making process. I think
there's a flip side of that though, where I think that Feyenoord. I think that one of the I think the French sides were really interesting last year in that I think they worked out we can get some points on the board early, we can have a real go, and also games aren't dead. So I think in a Champions League group scenario, what you just described there, it wouldn't surprise me if Feyenoord sort of just went, you know what, this is one of them, and this is what we expected from this group. But because of the way the system works, I think there was a bit more of a mentality from the smaller sides, like points fine here, we stop them, but also we can really get stuck in. I think the French sides were dead interesting for it. I thought the French sides really targeted it.
But there's also
the dough as well.
Sorry,
they need the dough.
They need the dough as well. Yeah.
There's also no Europa League for 3rd place.
Yeah.
So you can be a bit more, okay, well, we can be a bit more circumspect and then go big in the games you expect to win. Now you've got to be able to be live in all of them.
Yeah, that's the way it goes all the way through. Mo, I'm going to, by all means, argue with any of these, but I'm going to say with certainty that Alisson, unless there's something I don't know, Alisson Becker, Ibu Konate, Virgil van Dijk, Ryan Gravenberch, Florian Wirtz, Mo Salah, Hugo Ekitike and Cody Gakpo will start against Atletico Madrid. Yes?
I'd agree with that.
Yes?
Yeah.
He was very thoughtful.
Only possibility is Gomez and Konate, otherwise I'm in full agreement.
I was thinking that, yeah.
Okay.
But I think if you said which is more likely, I would say it's like,
okay,
put a percentage on it, I'm saying 70% Konate, 30% Gomez.
All right,
I'm saying it's a possibility.
I've picked 8 players there, Phil. Pick me the other 3.
I think if he hadn't have brought him on so early, I would have said Robertson, but I think he might stay with Kirkers. I think he might then play Robertson against Everton. What have we after here?
A right back. And I think Szoboszlai could have named him and said it was fine.
Yeah.
But it's a bit more, I'm asking where Szoboszlai going to play.
I think Szoboszlai may go right back once again. I think it's probably more of a game for it. And then I think McAllister starts in midfield. I think, yeah.
I agree with that. I think they'll start Bradley in the League Cup game. They'll be looking at that.
Where are they going to start Frimpong now?
But you can play both of them.
Yeah.
You can play
Frimpong right wing.
Frimpong right.
Yeah, and I think he probably plays a good chunk of this game as well. No matter how the result goes, whether he comes on and makes it a 4 or a 5, or it's looking pretty comfortable and they want to Salah's legs on ice, so to speak, for the derby.
Yeah, I'm the same. I would wonder around whether or not there's an argument to start Frimpong in this game, but then obviously that then means that one of McAllister and Szoboszlai are starting, and I'd like to think probably both of those in his ideal world would start in this game. So
I think there's a big problem in starting Frimpong and Kerkez right back and left back at the same time, just because the height and the way that they play. Because we've spoken about set pieces before in our box. I think they think about set pieces in the other box, and I think they might just one or the other's fine, even though they're not playing in the same position, but effectively they're doing the same job.
I think you could possibly get away with it without Wirtz and McAllister. Like
Yeah,
if you told me we play midfield of Jones, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, I think you could probably wear it. But when it's you put him defending a set piece with Frimpong, Kerkez, McAllister, and Wirtz is not ideal, really, is it?
yeah, that's a consideration. Although you do think that Liverpool, to a certain extent, bought both Kerkez and Frimpong to be first choice, or at least to be in a position where they would put themselves into being first choice. So they would have to find a way around that at some point. But yeah, no, whether this is the game for that, I'm not sure.
Confident?
I am, yeah. I just don't. I've watched bits of them on Saturday night, and I wasn't overly impressed with them. They've had a poor start. When you look at they failed to beat any of Espanyol, Elche, and Alaves, which are not. You would expect a team of. I think we'd have 12 points out of 12 from their fixtures.
Yeah.
I think Barcelona would. I think Real Madrid probably would. I do think they may be a little bit of a fading force, Atletico Madrid. So they're not in great form. They've got a few injury worries. Let's hope to get out to a flyer.
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, Simeone could bring the dog and duck to Anfield, and I'd still expect a really tough game, to be honest with you. But effectively, I think we've got to be confident. Look at the squad, look at the options. 9 out of 9. Let's roll them.
That's the Anfield Wrap. Let's roll them.